Hey, welcome to the Plant Yourself podcast. I'm your host, Howie Jacobson. Quick reminder that the new book is out. You can change other people, the 4 steps to help your colleagues, employees, even family up their game. This is a business book, but it's also a personal book. I wrote it from my experience as a coach, helping people change entrenched self-sabotaging behaviors. And I put all my knowledge and all of Peter Bregman, my co-author's knowledge, into a book to help you do the same thing with the people that you care about in your life. So it's available right now. It is for sale wherever books are sold, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookstore.org, your local independent bookshop, my personal preference, if you can do that. And I would love for you to get a copy. That is one amazing way to support me, is to help the sales of the book, and to read it and implement it. And if you like, go on Amazon or somewhere and leave a review. All right, so let's get to today's episode. All right, let's get to today's show. Today's episode covers technology and spirituality. And I am very skeptical when it comes to putting those together, because to me, spirituality is about something transcendent. It's not about the sort of grasping mind. And technologists tend to be in it for the profit and have tended to commodify spiritual seeking, just another thing to have or to chase after, to collect and accumulate. And so the technological imperatives can make us lose track of the ultimate goal of being one with the universe, of being okay with who we are without needing to get the next thing, whether it's a car or a lover or an experience or enlightenment itself. Today's guest, Danielle Roberts, is the founder of AwarenessLab and MeditationLab, and she is approaching the ideas of spirituality and spiritual seeking and mindfulness, looking to use technology as a means to get us there, as opposed to a means to make her rich or her investors rich. So in the conversation, we talk about her goals, her work, her own life crisis that led her to embrace meditation as a means of transcending some of the difficulties of life on this earth, and her artistic background and how that plays into the creation of experiences that help people become more mindful and experience spiritual growth. So without further ado, Danielle Roberts, welcome to the Plant Yourself podcast.
Well, thank you very much, Howard. I'm really happy to be here.
So you have spent a lot of time working with technology, with costumery, with art, with the Internet of Things, and it's all been in the service of something like meditation or mindfulness or spirituality or transcendence. I want to get into kind of which of those and which ones of those it is. But first, I'd love for you just to share a little bit about your very unique background and journey.
Okay, fine. I was trained as a visual artist. That was somewhere last millennium, so that's quite a while back. And a couple of years after I graduated from art school, I got a personal crisis, got into a personal crisis, and I didn't want to be an artist anymore. And I looked all over the place to see, what else I could do. And it sort of exhausted me. And after a couple of years, I decided, I can't figure this out by thinking. So I decided, I just sit down and meditate and see what answers come to me. So that was, the start of my meditation practice. And it was kind of funny that through a meditation group, I met someone who was really into computers and internet, and he invited me to write something for his website. So that was just at the start of the internet, like the late 90s. And well, I was sort of intrigued. He gave me a really old DOS computer with green letters on the screen, and I could write things up and deliver it to him digitally. And I just started writing about my meditation experiences and things I was looking for. So right from the start, somehow the meditation and technology, internet sort of became intertwined. So I started picking up my art practice again, and writing about little writing and photography, taking photos, writing haikus, doing all kinds of combining all kinds of media to sort of explore what I was experiencing during meditation, what I was looking for, of course, hindrances and all kinds of things that come up. And so that was all sort of screen-based. And then around a couple of years later, I started looking again away from the screen. And fortunately, like sensor technology and microcontrollers became more available and more widespread. And so I started, of course, also with help from experts, but I started exploring that, measuring things about myself, my heart rate, my breathing, my stress levels. And so that was a sort of more, objective, quantitative side to the writing and photographing I had done before.
Mm-hmm. So can I ask you to sort of jump in with some questions about that? Sure. So I don't want to pry into the nature or of the personal crisis, but I'm curious that you turned to meditation. Was it sort of to solve it? Because, like you said, like your mind had hit a dead end. Like what did you think meditation was going to do for you?
Yeah, I had, of course, been reading a lot also about it and about enlightenment and getting deep insights and relieving suffering and things like that. So that was actually what I was looking for then, and I'm still looking for now, actually. So, the most deep insight that a human can have, like a personal transformation. These are the things that I'm not just becoming quiet or less stressful. I want to go for set the bar really high. So that was my goal then, and I'm still. Goal is perhaps not really the right word, but that's what really fascinates me, and actually what the main driver of everything I do and my whole life. So.
Gotcha. So somehow your exploration and practice of meditation brought art back into your life. What was it? Was it that you think like art isn't making a difference? It's not fulfilling me. It's too commercial. Like what allowed you and art to reconcile?
Yeah, so the reason I was just really disappointed in what art could bring, and also the way when you're young and you just graduate and you're really passionate about what you do, and then you realize, oh, well, the world isn't really waiting for another young artist, even though, the work was interesting. It was like really confronting. I thought it was hard to take. And I was also looking for these deeper insights through my work. I did sculpting and monumental design. And I was also exploring personal experiences and trying to capture that in little sculptures and things like that. So the disappointment was what was the reason that I said, well, leave it. It's also the whole world, you know, you have to know people and you have to come from Amsterdam and not from the south where I live, and in order to get grants and things like that. So the whole world sort of, the whole art world, just wasn't appealing to me anymore. And why did I, finally, get back to art again, was because in my meditation practice, I was sort of rediscovering joy in simple things, in just living, in walking, in little objects. And they brought a spark of joy and meaning back into my life. So I started to capture those, and that was actually what I was also writing about on that website, taking pictures of just everyday things, everyday activities, a pebble in my hand, you know, nice flower alongside the road, morning skies, things like that, things that make you feel alive.
So most artists I know, and both of my children are artistic. I don't know if they would call themselves artists, but from very young, that was their fun, right? Uh-huh. And so I'm wondering if that's what meditation allowed you to get back to, like the type of art you did as maybe a 3-year-old or a 7-year-old. Or that sort of relationship with. Like without trying to impress the world or make a living.
Yeah, I suppose the last thing you mentioned, I think that was really important. That was the really nice thing about publishing your art on the web. I could control it myself. No one had to agree or disagree. I felt a lot of freedom in just showing what I was doing, sharing these precious moments that I experienced. These little miracles, everyday miracles, I called them. And that was really, really liberating. And it did bring back the joy of making things. Even when I was a kid, I loved, tinkering, making things, repairing things. That made it, really simple again. Not so highbrow or arty-farty. It was just simple and intimate, actually.
Mm-hmm. That's true. So at some point you said these sensors became more available and affordable. So what made there's all these things that I do in my life that it never would occur to me to quantify, right? But there was something about the meditation experience or the spiritual experience that you felt could be translated into essentially ones and zeros, right? Like where did that idea come from?
Okay, So as I already explained, I'm just really interested in going further, exploring deeper, and seeing what actually is the most fulfilling, makes me happy, brings me closer to the transcendent or to true insight. So I started exploring, in the beginning just with things that I could buy, or even little pieces of software that I wrote myself. That, for example, popped up every 2 hours on my computer screen and asked me, how was my mood? How was my energy level? How did I feel inner peace? Things like that. And it logged all these data and sent them to an online database. And what I wanted to do was by sort of course, these data isn't the essence of who I am, but by sort of going around who I am, I was trying to sort of get a grip on what are the most important and impactful things in my life. Is it the weather? Is it my mood? Is it how I feel inside? So these are the things that I wanted to get a grip on and wanted to get more insight into.
Gotcha. So I know there is a an ethos within some meditation circles, and I certainly am no expert on the wide variety of meditative traditions, in which that's really all about acceptance of the now, right? Like whatever is what you're meditating on. So whether you're meditating on the fact that your kids are fighting in the next room, or it's raining out and you wish it was sunny, or you have a pain in your back, and yet part of your exploration was, how do we get optimal meditation? Is there a contradiction there between accepting whatever life brings us and then trying to optimize our environment?
Yeah. This question has been posed to me earlier. Of course, it's understandable. I think what I try to do is, it's not that I don't know being with what there is. I've got a meditation practice of 25 years, standing, practicing every day, going to retreats, all without the technology. What makes me curious is to think, what if we add some technology that can sort of influence us or through the environment? So that was my project, MeditationLab Experimenter Kit. So with the emphasis on experimenter. So you could experiment if the environment could help you, for example, becoming quieter more easily, or focused more easily. You still are in the here and now. I mean, the neighbors keep drilling holes in the wall, and you can't control that. But if you have an environment that is sort of supportive for your endeavor, that was what I was curious about, to see if that's possible.
So something like, I think you've written about wanting to make the meditative experience or spiritual experiences more accessible to more people, so that there's a way in which the very simplicity and purity of meditation both says, well, anybody can do it, but also the bar is very high for having an experience that you would want to do again. If I eat a piece of chocolate, I'm kind of hooked. I'm like, oh, I get why that's fun. When I first sat down to meditate, I was like, I'm bored, I'm in pain, and nothing, and you know what? And nothing good happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. That's what you describe is exactly why, even though it's simple, it's not easy. I mean, the thing that most people, I think, also find very hard is that it's confronting. It confronts you with your own thoughts, your inner restlessness, and also it's also practical. So you have to set apart some of your time during our busy lives to just do nothing, essentially sit there and meditate, and your legs may hurt, and then you think, I'd rather go call a friend, or like you say, eat some nice snack, or to feel better. So it's like sort of a steep curve before you get. I mean, for me personally, it also took me years before meditating became more or less pleasant. I mean, it was like a real struggle. It was sort of So it's hard to sell. Like why should I was really motivated by the idea of transcendence and getting ultimate insight. So that what kept me going. And also, of course, you have little glimmers of insight and different kinds of experiences. And you feel that it does something to you that's you can't get any other way somehow. But I mean, it's like a hard path. It's sort of a bit cruel, maybe even.
Right. Well, I mean, I remember, I think this must have been in the late 90s, early 2000s, we got this software program that had a wearable called Wild Divine. And it was essentially a video game, a very sort of lush, colorful video game that you controlled with these sensors on your fingers.
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember it was kind of fun. I wasn't sure what it was actually doing for me, because it's, I still like meditation was sort of like about not striving, about sort of being, and yet I was trying to make the balloon rise or achieve things. And at the same time, I was also proving to myself that my thoughts had power to change my physiology, which could change the world. It was kind of magical to change how I thought and breathed and make a thing go up and down. Is that a little bit about what you're up to when you are helping people externalize the goals of meditation? So like, transcendence and insight are one thing, but seeing numbers in the real world is a completely different thing, but it certainly can be fun and motivating.
What exactly do you mean by seeing numbers?
Well, I was looking at the silent suit, right, which was this like monk's cowl or monk's robe that has all these technology in it, and you can look at your data, so you can see like here my data is now a numerical algorithmic manifestation of some inner state. And so on the one hand, I'm fascinated by that. And on the other hand, like, well, doesn't that supersede the idea that meditation is subjective?
Okay, let's see if I can pick that apart, because
go anywhere you want. The question might not have been particularly clear, so I want to use that sort of as a diving board for you to go in whatever direction you want.
Yeah. So I see a couple of diving boards here. I think what's important to understand is that the silent suit and the whole MeditationLab experimenter kit is not actually about the data. The data is gathered so actually train an algorithm which influences your environment. In this case, we started with light. So our idea was that light has an impact on you. Your complete environment, of course, influences your state, your inner state. And we wanted to see if by tweaking the light, there's research on that, that certain types of light, for example, stimulate concentration. Others stimulate relaxation. So these are, for example, two things that can help you go deeper perhaps into your meditation practice. So you could just use the suit and the whole software suite and the light that's part of the system to just meditate and under different light conditions which would be optimized for you. So that's one way to use it. And then hopefully it would, for example, if you have a bad day, it would still be easier for you to concentrate or to relax. And also it's real time. So the algorithm keeps looking at what's going on once it's trained well enough, and then it wouldn't adjust the light. So you could just do that, put on the suit and sit with the light and do your regular thing. There's no...
And this would be and this would be like one of these like Philips smart lights that would change the hue and intensity.
Used, actually. Yeah, that's what we so you could change the color and brightness, things like that. And yeah, so like I said, based on research that's been done in completely different domains, by the way, education and for during driving, like truck drivers who may fall asleep, yeah, which also happens during meditation, of course, sometimes. So we sort of took from that and experimented with it. So that's one thing. On the other hand, of course, it's a really mysterious thing that happens while you meditate. It's and you can it's fine to leave it at that, but yeah, I'm actually quite interested in what actually happens in my body. You observe your mind, and you can also observe your body. What's actually going on? What is my breathing rate, for example? And how does this relate to what happens in my brain? So you can also use it, that's the data part, to look back. There's also like a qualitative questionnaire to assess your meditation quality. And then you can start comparing, like, oh well, I see these numbers, and these are my outcomes from the questionnaire, and then you can maybe start to see patterns. I mean, the next step would be that the software would do that and present you with things, but that was not how far we got at that stage. Mm-hmm. So that's for the curious who maybe also want to look under the hood, so to speak. Uh-huh.
So one thing that really captured my attention was one of the subjective questionnaires that you used was designed for psychedelic experiences, right? Yes. So what made you say that's applicable to meditation?
Okay, yeah, well, the mystical experience questionnaire that you're referring to, that is used in another project. So.
Okay.
So that is used in my project Magic Tea that I'm currently working on, and what I want to do in that project is to see if ordinary activities through technology can lead to transcendent experiences. So. The suit we talked about earlier, the suit with the software has its focus on formal meditation. You might also use the suit while boiling tea, for example, but it was designed for formal meditation. And the next project, the one that I'm working on now, is actually taking like a sort of flipped approach. Where I see, you also hear that a lot, for example, in Zen Buddhism, they also talk a lot about bringing the higher, so to speak, and the ordinary closer together, or maybe they're already one. And that's what I want to explore, and also to see again, like, can technology help facilitate that? Can it promote these types of experiences? So now to come back to your question about this questionnaire. So I'm an artist and I just like making things, but I also would like to know, does it work? So if I want to create a transcendent experience for people while they're brewing a cup of tea, I'd have to test that. And so I looked at various scales from psychology, measurements, and the reason I chose the mystical experience questionnaire, it has only 30 items, and it actually explores what they also do with these psychedelic sessions. Is they're also interested in can these psychedelic drugs promote transcendent experiences. So the goal is the same, except they use drugs and I use technology, so to speak. Uh-huh. Yeah. So that's why I started using those, and also I mean, making a cup of tea is like the whole it's like an installation, and the whole process takes about 15 minutes. So if you would then have to fill in like 100 question scale, I think that would be too much. So I discovered this more compact one, which also measures the things that I'm interested in, to measure the effects of my my installation. So that's why I used it.
Mm-hmm. So what one thing I'm curious about is, so you have these sensors that are, whether it's the silent suit for formal meditation or the sensors people are wearing for the magic tea installation, that they're measuring something. And whatever they're measuring, and even the questionnaires that you give people afterwards, you have to choose what you're going to measure. And I know I looked at your LinkedIn profile. I know you have a background in nutrition as well. And so, like, for me, I think about, how can we tell what's good for somebody? The only way is to, like, follow them for their whole life and see how long they live and how healthy they are. But we're always looking for biomarkers. We're looking for nutrients in food. There's B12 in this food, and there's lycopene in the tomatoes. And of course, we get into terrible trouble with reductionism, where we say, well, if we can change these biomarkers, then that must be good for us. And so I'm wondering, did you struggle with a reductionism to say, well, this is what we can measure, so this is how we're going to define transcendence or spirituality?
Okay. I mean, measuring something, like transcendence, which is already hard to describe in itself. An experience, a transcendent experience, is really hard to put into words. I mean, that's one of the hallmarks of such an experience. So I think we're always a bit we can't really do justice to such an experience. But I think we can learn from the tools that are out there, and but I suppose they're certainly not perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you, like, when you're talking about transcendent experiences, how do you talk about it? Because, the meditation teachers that I have followed basically say, if you had the experience, you would recognize how absolutely ordinary it is at the same time. And, so, like, I have a mental concept, but the mental concept comes from my identification with my ego. Like, I think about what it would be like to not have an ego. How do you even talk about, as an artist, as a public figure, as an experimenter, as someone who you're going around convincing people to give you money for this, through grants or whatever. How do you even talk about transcendence in a way that other people can, if not understand, at least get behind?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. I think one way to do it is to actually not talk about it too much. I mean, because it's, for example, if people partake in experiments, I don't talk about transcendence. I just talk about a special tea experience, for example. Actually, the nice thing about transcendence is that they really have a lot of positive aspects coupled to them. So it's, apart from the higher spiritual meaning, there are also things like people find purpose, they have a more positive effect, all kinds of things that are more easy to grasp. People are more relaxed. there's all kinds of more sort of mundane things you can say about like these peak experiences. So that's also a way I approach it. For example, with the silent suit, it was like a European prize, which it had to do with health. So then you sort of reframe it more to a health perspective. It's a sort of lens you can put on things. So you can look at it, transcendence, for example, from a very religious or spiritual perspective, or you can look at more like, okay, what does it bring people? What benefits do people get from it? So that's sort of my sort of two approaches that I use.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can you describe the tea installation? Because I watched some videos on it, and on the one hand, it's clearly very high tech, and it's very intentionally designed. On the other hand, it's extremely simple and sparse. And I'd love for you just to describe like what we would see or what we would experience if we were participating in it, and what thinking went into making it the way it was, because it looked like every decision was so intentional.
Yeah, well, thank you. I consider that a compliment. So what do you see? I think it's good to explain a little bit about the design process, because what I actually did before I arrived at the activity of making tea as a subject for transcendent experiences, I first explored other types of activities that people could do, or that might have like might be potential candidates for a design. Looking at history, of course, there's the Japanese tea ceremony from the Zen Buddhist tradition. I talked to experts to part in a tea ceremony, and then I thought, okay, that's in that realm. That's in the Japanese culture. It's also like a really long trajectory to become a tea master. There aren't so many tea masters around here, so it seemed like, both from what people experienced and from sort of opportunities here in the West, it seemed like a good activity to sort of explore and see, how can I transform this activity. So I work a lot with users or potential users, people who like drinking tea, people who are interested in mindfulness, also people who just want to experience something else, or are just curious about the project. And what I did is look at the actual acts you do during preparing tea. So you tap water, you boil water, you steep the tea, and you drink the tea. And I presented users with different scenarios to see which type of. I mean, usually you just have this electric water cooker. You have a mug and a tea bag, and ping, it goes, and you pour the tea, and you're ready. So that's the one extreme, or you can even get it from a machine, and then then the process is completely hidden. So I had just had a hunch that wasn't the most optimal way of making tea. So I presented people on all these 4 aspects with different scenarios. For example, instead of using a water cooker, what if you could boil water on a campfire? So that was the other extreme. So I explored with the users all these scenarios through videos and sort of like embodied experiences, looking at different types of tea. And from that emerged a set of design principles. what people found important in having a different type of tea experience. And also is again my quantified self background, also which provoked the emotions and mind states that were conductive and promotive of a transcendent experience. So I had them fill in these questionnaires. So from that, I started designing a table. So now I'm going to describe what do you actually see. So I knew that it was, I had learned from these experiments that it was really good that it had a good effect on people to separate all these activities and to make it really transparent and make it, slow it down and make it natural. So these are all kinds of things that emerge from these earlier experiments. So that's what I did. I made it like a table. It had a shape of sort of a half a donut shape, and every spot on that table there you could do a different activity. But then every activity was actually modified. So you tap water, not from a jar or from the tap or whatever. It's like a really special process that also invites you to become more attentive and pay special attention and become more aware of also the quality of water, for example. Like, what is water and where does it come from? And it's not so obvious that it just comes from a tap and then you right. Throw it away again.
So this was, the water was in transparent glass, and there was some sort of process where you had to siphon it, right, into the thing you're cooking.
That's true. Yeah. So these are like a sort of universal law of nature that I sort of applied to this really everyday activity of making tea. So, and by making it a bit harder and a bit slower, then people have the time to sort of contemplate. Also, I use media, sound in this case, to sort of enhance the idea that water isn't something that comes from the tap, but water comes from the universe. From it's maybe the water we use is 1,000 years old or 1,000,000 years old. We don't know. So that these are sort of things that I wanted to provide space for, to have these sort of associations occur in people by slowing down the process and making it transparent. Yeah.
It reminds me of, in my religious tradition, which is Judaism, pretty much everything you do has a blessing associated with it. So like when you eat bread, the blessing is, blessed be the one who brings bread forth from the earth, which if you listen to it literally, begs the question of, like, how did it get there? How did it come out? How did it get transformed? Like, it almost invites you to pay attention to the process. And it sounds like, in a way, that's what you're doing by saying, this is something you take for granted and you do mindlessly, and you are completely unaware or ignorant or neglectful of all of the other pieces that go into bringing you this water. Thousands of municipal employees, millions of miles of piping, glaciers, like to see the water there and to have to do something with it really invites the user to come into a much more connected relationship.
Yeah, exactly. I really, really like the way you put that. And actually, connection was one of, I must say, I really like that what you bring up now, because I don't know if you have read anything by Thich Nhat Hanh. He's like the Vietnamese Zen teacher. And he has written a small book on the Heart Sutra. It's a classic Buddhist text where they talk about the concept of emptiness. Emptiness is, of course, really difficult to grasp, but its main characteristics are interconnectivity and the way that everything is always changing, is impermanent. And these two things, you mentioned connection just now, and Thich Nhat Hanh has these really beautiful examples of how the page you are reading, how it goes back to the tree and to the earth and to the leaves and so he makes all these connections and he says that is emptiness. So and that's actually where my whole the installation is based on. I wanted to sort of embody for people to have an embodied experience of emptiness, where there indeed is this interconnectivity. And the way that things change, like you say, there's a whole process in making bread and all the things that go into it. Well, that's exactly what I wanted to have people experience while making this cup of tea. So I love your comparisons. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Then at one point, the participant has to strike a match.
Yeah.
Right, but I wasn't clear. Does it light a fire? Because it looked like there were electrical coils heating it. So I wasn't clear on the relationship of the match to the ignition of the heat source.
Sure. Yeah. Like I said, I presented people with these participants with these experience scenarios, and unanimously people wanted to boil water on a campfire. Well, I mean, I can imagine. I also would myself, but it's indoors and it's of course not feasible. So what I wanted to do is take something from that campfire experience and put it in this sort of high-tech installation. So that's why I use the match. So people strike the match, and it triggers a sensor, a light sensor, which then triggers this immersion heater. So they strike a match and they start the heating process. So that's what happens there. Yeah.
I see. And also there's sound that is connected to their to biofeedback, right? They're wearing sensors, so the experience is uniquely
tailored to
So what is it measuring, and how does it feed back, and what happens typically with that feedback loop? Does it inhibit certain things? Is it a positive or a negative feedback loop? What happens?
Yeah, sure. So what I measure two things. I measure heart rate and breath flow. And what I want to do is I'm not interested. The data isn't stored anywhere where it's not to see, are you getting more relaxed? What I want to do is represent the user's biodata in these various objects and through these different media. So then we come back to this concept of emptiness and this interconnectedness. And the goal is actually to blur the boundaries between the user and the objects that he or she is interacting with. And I do that through taking these live measurements of these biodata and representing them in different ways.
Mm-hmm. And do people notice? Because I think about ways in which the environment can feed back to someone, like sort of neuro-linguistic programming, mirroring, where you can influence someone a great deal by and they don't even notice. Like can people tell that the environment is actually a mirror of sorts?
Well, so far they haven't. It was one of the things that you you find out when you do experiments. People do sometimes see the connection, like, hey, this could be heart rate, or this could be breathing, but they don't actually make the connection to themselves yet. So that's one of the next things that I'm working on, to see how can I make that. Of course, it's very illogical. It's not something you expect. You don't expect to see your heart rate in a cup, or things like that. So so that will be my next challenge, actually, to see if that is possible, also by making it a bit more accurate. And so there's some technical issues. I explicitly don't want to tell the people, like, oh, pay attention because your heart rate is there, and the breathing you can see there. I don't want to do that, but I would like to sort of prime them, like you say, in a sort of really subtle way, so that they're more open to recognizing their own biodata. But that's a design challenge.
So one thing I found really lovely was when you were interviewing people about their experience, so many of them said that the peak of the experience was the tea leaves unfolding in the water. And it's I found it lovely because that's the least technological thing of the whole process. This is sort of organic and natural. What do you make of that?
Yeah, well, I do introduce some technology, because I light up the sort of teapot. It isn't an actual pot in that version. I'm working on another version where it is an actual teapot, but I light up the leaves from below. So and people, it's also to do with eye level, I think. So usually in a bag you of course don't see the tea leaves. But even then, you sort of look from the top. You look down, and here you're more at eye level. There's this light coming from below, which makes it really it's already really beautiful to see. And so with the technology, I do sort of accentuate the already beautiful process that is taking place. And the tea that I chose is also intentional. It's also one of the experiments that I did to see, okay, which tea would be most suitable for this installation. And people also chose that one because of the rich visuals, and because you actually see, there we come at the other, one of the characteristics of emptiness, that is this impermanence. And that you can see embodied in the leaves unfolding. So, that's my take on. But I mean, you do of course touch an important point, like how much technology is necessary, or maybe technology even gets in the way. That could be. Maybe designing a new interaction, slowing things down, making things transparent is in itself already enough. But I don't know if it's enough to actually have a transcendent experience. I mean, I already know that it's enough to make people relax and have an interesting and nice experience. That's already the results I harvested, but I would really like to go one step further. Not just be mindful, but do something with the perception of the self and the world around you, to see if I can get some sort of mind shift there.
Yeah, because I was thinking as I was watching the experiment, like what environments in my world would I like to play with to change people's, experience and perceptions? And the two that came up for me was, one is my office, which is a highly technological place. So the computer's here, I've got my lights, my microphone, various pieces of tech. And honestly, I come to the office in the morning and there's nothing here that wants to make me mindful, right? Like my computer just wants to suck me into Facebook, or if I'm on a good day, suck me into my work that's going to make me money, right? So there's no, again, coming back to the Jewish tradition, there's something called the mezuzah, which is like a little a container that holds a scroll of biblical text that you're supposed to, you walk through the door and you're reminded of the transcendence of what you're doing. And I'm wondering, and I started thinking, what could I do in my office that could slow me down, that could stop me from being sucked in the way, because the world of hot beverages is going the way of Keurig, where you don't even have to think anymore and it just appears and you drink it and you haven't even noticed. Do you have any, I don't know, have you tried to apply any of these installations and kits and ideas to your everyday life, to your office, to your home, to your kitchen, to help you, if not become, 100% transcendent, then at least to move you away from the mindlessness that our mechanized world, kind of calls forth.
That's interesting. Because the first thing I would say to that is that I, of course, do it in my work as an artist. That's where I'm exploring these things. The other thing I would like to say about that is that the drinking of tea is one example on which you could apply certain technologies to try to promote transcendence. But I'm also working with students and design students, and with them I'm also going to explore what other activities or like you say, spaces, or can there be that can maybe through little tweaks and changes can make you become, remind you of this bigger picture, not just our own little life, and like you say, making money, being in a hurry, all these things, having a full agenda. I'm for myself, I'm really curious, how can this sort of spread, and how can also can my insights be made into tools that other people could use to, for example, to experiment in your own office to see what little tweaks could I do here to bring in this transcendence, of to invite it. So that's actually another line of my research, that I'm trying to build a toolkit that will empower people to create these things for themselves.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of the work of Christopher Alexander around, a pattern language. I think he looked at bigger spaces, sort of architectural and designs of communities and cities. But this idea that our environment reminds us who we are, and we are so many things that if our environment is completely chosen by a capitalist culture, it's going to remind us that we're consumers. Whereas if we put more intentionality into it, it can remind us that we're other things as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've been greatly inspired by the work of Christopher Alexander. The way I design the table, the layout, I use certain some of his principles. He calls them the properties to create a sense of wholeness. And actually, he's a really spiritual architect. So his work has been a great inspiration. And he also gave me the faith to sort of believe that, through objects that you interact with, through spaces, you can maybe set in motion or open people up for different kinds of experiences and different mind states. Yeah.
Right. So I mentioned there were two environments I was curious about. One is my office. Yeah. The other is the kitchen. And so, so my job is I help people be healthier, and I help them often make better food choices. And I realized one of the things that I do is I try to make it as easy as possible for people. So I'll tell people, buy a bag of frozen chopped onions and just toss them in and use this. And it's all about efficiency and lowering the bar to those experiences. And I realize I'm neglecting something else. And maybe that's fine at the beginning, but I'm wondering if you have thoughts, or like in your kitchen, like if food is really like the ultimate transcendent thing, right? Food is how the world becomes us. And if you have any thoughts about kitchen design or dining room design, little things that we could try maybe to see if we can consume more emptiness and interconnectivity, as well as vitamins, minerals, and calories.
I love that, because it's also I did some research to see like which places in the house are suitable candidates for interventions on transcendence, and being in the kitchen, I had people map their mind states and what happened there. It was really interesting that people often feel quite relaxed in the kitchen, attentive and concentrated, because of course they have to do these manual tasks. So I think my choice for choosing tea was also that I wanted to do something with food. Food, sucks you in. But how to design your kitchen? I mean, that could be a whole. Maybe we could jump into that together. But that could be a whole new project to think about. These things, like what opportunities are there in the kitchen. I think one of the things that's really interesting is making things more transparent. That's also what I applied, of course, in my installation. And then you can sort of see more, So it's always like a balance between, being practical, productive, effective, and bringing in this other sphere, this other mindset. And I find that by making things maybe a bit harder and more transparent, more visual, then you can more easily make this connection and find more fascination in these everyday tasks.
Right. So, I would say, like, for me, the baseline for more, I wouldn't say maybe transcendence, but certainly, I mean, I also don't think it's a binary where at a certain point you tip into transcendence, that you can be more or less aware. And I guess, transparent means, allowing light in. Right, but both physical and spiritual light. That anything that could get me sort of to slow down and think about the larger process of which whatever I'm doing is a single node.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's this movement. It's called slow design, and they have set these. Principles and that was someone else who sort of added, for example, ritual to the principles of slow design. Making things transparent is one of the slow design principles, but also ritualizing things, like you say, saying a blessing or doing something or doing certain movements. I think is also a good way into making the ordinary, more special, more mindful. Yeah.
All right. So one more question. Well, more than one more question. But the next question. I'm almost done with you. Why did you call it the Magic Tea installation? Why magic? It's such a loaded word.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I suppose it's my way of hinting towards something beyond the ordinary. So tea is an ordinary thing. Like I said, the water cooker, the tea bag, the mug. Okay, yeah, what can be magic about a cup of tea? So I wanted to sort of trigger people to realize that even brewing a cup of tea can be an extraordinary experience, and which is of course what I hope to achieve with my installation.
And so for people who are interested in interacting with it, is the only way to do it to come to your lab and do the tea ceremony? Those silent suits, are they available either to buy or with open source instructions to make? Like for people who are like, oh, this is really cool, what are there things they can do to participate?
Okay, I suppose they can check out, at least start by checking out the website. So for the silent suit, I have the website meditationlab.nl.
Okay, and that's NL, like the Netherlands
the
country.
Netherlands where I come from.
So meditationlab.nl.
.nl.
Okay.
Right? And so for me personally, the thinking that went into MeditationLab experimental kit was that of open source and also developing it further with a community. So if there is someone out there who says, oh, I'm really triggered by this, I would like to take this on and start working on it. Yeah, for me, I'm just one person, and it's not something that has my focus at the moment. But if people are interested in taking that on, but please contact me. That would be really nice. As for the Magic Tea, it's still under development actually, and it will be shown at the virtual Dutch Design Week, which is a really big event with a lot of designers from the Netherlands, but also abroad. So there you can see a bit more how it works.
Okay. And what's the website for the Magic Tea?
The Magic Tea you can find at my main website for my company. It's called AwarenessLab.nl. And there you can look under projects, and you can also see the other projects that have a lot of overlap with what I do with Magic Tea. And there is also a link to the blog, and you can see the various design steps and experiments that I did. So
great, and I'll include links to all that in the show notes for this episode as well. All right, so my final question, and I have been asking this of guests recently, and I'm really enjoying it. Is there any music that you are listening to now or enjoying that other people don't know about? That is sort of something you could share. There is music that I listen to, but it's sort of the complete opposite of what we've been talking about. Well, maybe not quite, but so it's dance music and so electronic dance music, and there's this Dutch duo called Moxie. And they make great stuff. M-O-X-I-E? M-O-S-K-I. M-O-S-K-I. Moxie. Moxie. M-O...
Oh, I'm really bad at spelling. M-O-K-S-I. M-O-K-S-I. Sorry.
All right. I will go find them. I'll throw up a YouTube if I can find it, and a link to a Spotify playlist.
Nice. Yeah.
Great. And anything you want to share that I haven't asked about?
No, I think it's been really, really interesting to go in depth. About my own motives and the projects that I did, and I was really inspired by your perspective from Buddhism, from Judaism. So that's really nice. I'll look into that. It's really interesting.
Great. Well, I was inspired to go make a cup of tea. So Danielle Roberts, thank you for taking the time. You have such an interesting and brave, from my perspective, brave career of diving into the unknown again and again. And so I appreciate the insights that you've shared, and the unknown ways in which we can benefit from them, and for taking the time today.
Okay, thank you very much. It's been a really nice experience talking to you.
All right, it's a wrap. I hope you found that useful. Definitely check out Danielle's websites, AwarenessLab.nl and MeditationLab.nl. NL stands for Netherlands, where she lives and is from. If you like the show and you'd like to support the mission of the show, you can always do so by becoming a patron. And you can go to plantyourself.com/gift to find out more about how to do that. You can also spread the word. Let people know on social media, email people if you think this is a particularly useful episode for them to listen to. You can also go leave a review and some stars for the podcast. Let people know what you think about it, and that helps us reach a wider audience. So garden news, we got what might be our final bunch of basil for some pesto pasta the other night. There are still beans to be harvested, and the greens look like they're beginning to come alive now that it's been cool for a couple of weeks. And the bees, of course, are very, very happy, pollinating like crazy. So the garden looks a little bit like a mess because there's a lot of stuff in there that's sort of dying or unruly, but it's all part of the organic system of nature. Things in nature are usually not neat and tidy, but they are fecund, which is a word not as dirty as it might sound at first blush. I feel like I should expand running news to sort of fitness news, because today I did not go running. Instead, I did a yoga workout that I have not done in probably 10 years. It's an old VHS tape that I got again on DVD and then converted to digital. It's Ali McGraw Yoga with Eric Schiffman. It was about a 45-minute workout. Did it in my office this morning. Felt so good. So I think I'm going to go running, short run or a walk or a jog this afternoon. But getting the old joints limbered up was really a blast. And my podcast with Glenn Murphy last week, where he helped me think about these tough poses and challenging positions as something to sort of breathe into with curiosity. I used that technique, and it definitely helped me get through the thing. All right, time for thanks. Thanks to Will Ridenauer for allowing me to use his beautiful song Sabali Dawn, The Dance of Peace. You can find more of Will's music at his website, willridenauer.com. And of course, thanks to all of you Plant Yourself podcast patrons. Kim Harrison, Lynn McClellan, Brittany Porter, Dominic Maurer, Barbara Whitney, Tammy Black, Amy Good, Amanda Hatterley, Mary Jane Wheeler, Ellen Kennelly, Melissa Cobb, Rachel Behrens, Tina Scharf, Tina Ahern, Jen Filkanovsky, David Bizek, The Mysterious Michelle X, Elsbeth Feldman, Leah Stoller, Alan Christensen, Colleen Peck, Michelle Landry, Josina, Sarah Durkis, Kelly Cameron, Janet Selby, Claire Adams, Tom Franzek, Jeanette Bennett, Gila Cert, David Donahue, Blair Cyber, Dorona Vizov, Gio and Carolyn Argentati, Jody Friesner, Misha Rosen, Michael Warbeck, Aviva Lael, Alicia Lemus, Val Linneman, Nick Harper, Bandana Chawley, Molly Levine, The Inscrutable Harry R., Susan Laverty, The Panda Vegan, Craig Kovic, Adam Scharf, Karen Burry, Heather Morgan, Nigel Davies, Marion Blum, Teresa Copel, Julian Watkins, Breed O'Connell, Sharon Hirschman, Linda Ayat, Holm Hedegaard, Isa Tuzinwa, Connie Hainline, Aaron Greer, Alicia Davis, Heather O'Connor, Carolyn Jensen, Sherry Olakoski of Plant Powered for Health, Karen Smith, Scott Marani, Karen and Joe Crabtree, Kirby Burton, Teresa Carell, Kevin McCauley, Elizabeth Rothschild, Ann Jesse, Cheryl Dwyer, Jenny Hazelton, Peter W. Evans, Dennis Bird, Darby Kelly, Lori Fanny, Linnea Lundquist, Emily Iconelli, Levy Wallach, Rosamund McAtee, Dan Picorni, Stephen Leenan, Patty DiMartino, Mike and Donna Kartz, Deanne Bishop, Bilberry Elf, Marjorie Lewis, Tricia Adams, Nancy Sheldon, Lindsay Bayshore, Gunmarie Hagan, Tracy Gullidge, Laura Heaton, Meg from Mama Says, Stacey Stokes, Ben Savage, Michael Kay, David Hughes, Connie Rogers, Claire England, Sally Robertson, Paranganchi, Amy Daly, Brian Tourville, Mark Jeffrey Johnson, Josie Dempsey, Karen Schmidt, Pamela Hayden, Emily Perryman, Allison Corbett, Richard Stone, Lauren Vaught of Edible Musings, Aaron Hasty, Sean Owen, Sagar Naik, Erica Piedra, Danielle Roberts, Michael Lushton, Sarah Johnson, Catherine Floyd, for your generous support of the podcast. That's it for now. As always, be well, my friends.